With all the talk of late of the total eclipse that will occur tomorrow, I've been watching the mainstream media and they're trying very hard to debunk the flat earth truth. Here you see this one paid propagandist that works for USA Today. Let's take a listen to what he says and we'll continue from there.
The solar eclipse this month isn't stopping some skeptics from believing the Earth is flat. The total solar eclipse on April 8th will be visible along a narrow path in the US from Texas to Maine. It's one reason scientists know the Earth, Sun, and Moon move through space.
And this is his claim. And as you can obviously see here, the path of the eclipse, the total eclipse path, and there's confusion. People actually believe the Sun and Moon make a path through this area. Absolutely not. And first off, if the Sun was truly 92 million miles away, as science claims, and the Moon 238,000 miles away, you wouldn't have this. You wouldn't have this narrow band of darkness. Basically, the whole Earth should be darkened, not just this narrow path, just as you see here with our sun. It's a local sun, obviously, for those that have eyes to see. Definitely not in so-called deep space. This is within our system, our God-created world, underneath God's firmament. Same thing with the moon, obviously, within our contained system, clear as day. Not in deep space. If it was in deep space, you wouldn't be able to see the moon during the daytime. And of course, there are many occasions where the sun and the moon are in the sky at the same time. And the sun and the moon are the sky clock. The whole concept of a clock or a wristwatch is based on the concept of how the sun and the moon work. Of course, the larger arm moves faster. That represents the sun. And the smaller arm is the moon, which moves a little bit slower. So basically, they circle around. This is, again, the whole entire concept of how the sun and the moon work above the flat earth. Now, let's take a listen here to Brianna Horgan of Purdue University and Jason Rhodes of NASA explain the sun and the moon and the size and the distance difference. And obviously, they're covering up for the lie heliocentric model. Let's play this clip.
On Earth, we have a very special kind of eclipse. The moon is actually just about the same size in the sky as the sun. Their distance and size just work out so they cover the same amount of area in the sky.
And so when the moon passes exactly in front of the sun, it's just large enough to block out the sun, and that's what we call a total solar eclipse.
So according to these two, specifically here with Jason Rhodes, by the way, Rhodes, a 33 name with NASA, how the sun and the moon work out where they look to us as basically the same size. I find that extremely interesting considering, according to mainstream science, the sun is 400 times larger than the moon, supposedly, and 400 times further away. But again, they appear to us as the same size. That's because they are, clearly. Now to explain exactly how the sun and the moon work on the flat earth when it comes to eclipses, let's take a look here first off at NASA's actual video, again showing the path of the total eclipse. And let's get right to it with the actual flat earth model. And as you can see, the Tropic of Capricorn, the Tropic of Cancer, and the sun circles basically east to west. The sun always sets in the west. Let's be very clear about that. And the sun remains within the two tropics. Now, a very important point I want to make here, according to the Bible, which is observable, repeatable, and that's what science is all about, where it states here from Psalm 19:6, his going forth, this is the sun, is from the end of the heaven, and his circuit, of course the circuit goes round unto the ends of it, and there is nothing hid from the heat thereof. And I pointed this out before when it comes to tropical plants that grow in this region, such as coconut trees. They only grow in the tropic region here. They don't grow outside of the tropics. Now let's get to the actual evidence of how, again, the total eclipse works on the flat earth. It's going to be very simple to explain. Let's get right to it. Take a look here at this demonstration of the sun, how it works on the flat earth as it circles, again, east to west, no different than a globe. But take a look here at this point right here. And this is the path. Imagine the moon being right here. This is how you get the eclipse path, the total eclipse, from the sun here, the moon blocking the sun to make that eclipse. In this region, this is how you get this path as you see here. Let's play this clip from the mainstream media. And as they show this time lapse of how the total eclipse will work, I'm going to pause it right there. And this is where the sun and the moon meet alignment, where this area here becomes totally eclipsed. And some might ask, why doesn't this total eclipse happen more often? Well, that's because the sun and the moon, their altitudes vary. And for the eclipse to happen, it has to be a precise sun and the moon alignment to create this total eclipse. And again, understand, if the sun was truly 92 million miles away, this wouldn't happen. This whole area would be darkened, not this small path. Again, proving the local sun and moon. Let's play this a little bit more. And this makes perfect sense, again, on the flat earth model, why this region only gets totally eclipsed. And the other regions, as you see here, the sun and the moon, side by side, and why certain areas get their partial eclipse, not the total eclipse. Again, just this region. Works perfectly, again, on the flat earth model. Makes perfect sense. And again, some people expect or suspect that this is the actual path of the sun and the moon, supposedly. Obviously, the sun and the moon never set in this region. Again, always east to west. Once again, as I demonstrated with this model with the sun circling above the flat earth. And I know there'll be some that'll be asking about lunar eclipses. I'll cover that as well with the heliocentric model, which absolutely makes no sense with the Selenian eclipse, which I'll get into. But first off, let's take a closer look here at what supposedly will happen with a lunar eclipse. With, of course, the ball Earth blocking the moon itself. And obviously, the top portion should remain illuminated to the viewer. The bottom portion should be dark. Doesn't matter which side of the so-called ball Earth you're on. So I'm going to cover this right now. Let's take a look here at the so-called lunar eclipse, the Selenian eclipse. As you see here, eclipse near the total at sunrise. This is from New Mexico. This time-lapse video shows a near Selenian event. Selenian is the phenomenon of the eclipsed moon being visible at the same time as the sun during sunrise. Let's get right to it. And for the record, this is from 2011, once again from New Mexico. As you see the moon, the top portion is darkened. It's being eclipsed. This shouldn't happen whatsoever, as the sun and the moon are both above the horizon. So definitely no so-called ball Earth at play here. And this has happened many times over the decades. So again, this is clear as day. Make no mistake about it. The so-called ball Earth is not creating this eclipse. Now take a listen to this individual, the same year, 2011, filming the lunar eclipse. And he's baffled. He can't comprehend what is taking place here, because obviously he's blinded by science. Let's take a listen.
But with the bright morning sun coming up, there's not much.
And clearly the sun is above the horizon.
Not enough contrast to be able to see the moon there. We can still see it just a little bit. What I find very interesting is I was expecting the shadow to come upward across the moon as it would go down and it would pass into shadow, and actually it's going the other way around. The shadow, as the moon is here, the shadow is creeping down across the moon, even though the sun's coming up over here, and that must be because of the moon's rotation around the Earth. It's moving farther up, even though the sun's light is actually coming from over there. It's actually coming underneath the Earth. So if you imagine, the sun is here, the Earth is here, and the moon is back here, and this light was coming under the Earth, but the moon must be rotating around even though we're turning, so it looks like the moon is going down. It's kind of an optical illusion. It's pretty cool.
Obviously, this guy is highly indoctrinated. He can't get past visually, scientifically, what he can observe. And just for reference, I'm going to get back to this model from New Mexico. The same day of the lunar eclipse he's observing, just for reference. So what he's saying is, basically, the light, as you see here under the moon, is going underneath. Even though the sun is above the horizon, somehow the sunlight is going around the ball Earth and coming back up, creating this light. Absolutely ridiculous. I feel sorry for this guy. 100% indoctrinated in the lie system. This completely debunks the lunar eclipse on the heliocentric model, along with the solar eclipse on the same lie heliocentric model. In conclusion of this presentation, I want to talk about the moon itself. According to mainstream science, the moon gets its light from the sun, reflected light. Obviously, this is another lie by mainstream science. Let's take a look here. As you see, the moon completely illuminated, giving off its own light to the surrounding clouds. Let's get a little bit of a close-up. As you see here, clearly not light coming from 92 million miles away. And let's take a look at that full moon. Obviously, from the center to the edges, there's no deviation of light. There's no dimming around the edges. So obviously the moon gives off its own light and not a reflection from the sun. It's clear as day. People that doubt this, they have been blinded by science. And as it states in Genesis 1:16, and God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. And there are a lot of so-called flat earth researchers trying to figure things out when the Bible already states it. There's nothing new under the sun. Everything is there. What the Bible states matches our reality and is obviously clear as day.
Can I talk to the pilot, please?
He's right here.
You're the pilot?
Hi.
How long have you been flying for?
Like for Delta, 21 years, but maybe like 30 something.
I want to know, because they say the pilots know a lot. Do you think the Earth is flat or no?
I know it's flat.
You know it's flat? How long have you been flying for, you said?
Over 30 years.
Why are you sitting in your chair today? Does gravity pull you to the floor? No. There is no such thing as gravitational pull. We lied to you.
First of all, we are born scientists. When we're born, we wonder what's out there. We begin to wonder about the sun, life, the stars, what makes the oceans, the weather. We're born scientists. And then something happens. When we hit the danger years of junior high school and high school, that's when it's literally crushed out of us.
Those are the worst.
Every little flower of curiosity, said Einstein, is crushed by society itself. Because we have to learn all these facts, figures, memorization, we think that memorization is science. And that's not true at all. In science, we always say that you make observations, you have a theory, you go make more observations, and it's a very, very tedious process. Wrong. Nobody that I know of in my field uses the so-called scientific method. In our field, it's by the seat of your pants. It's leaps of logic. It's guesswork.
Tell us what emotions you had.
Well, when I was standing outside that capsule, it was a very quiet and peaceful moment, you know. At that moment, you look at the world, and it looks very fragile. You could see the curvature of the Earth.
You've been lied to by textbooks, and that dude who jumped out of a perfectly good balloon, what's his name? Felix Baumgartner, he would have been about 2 millimeters above the surface of this globe. That's his edge of space jump. Now, you know, I don't, it's fine. He wants to, I don't have a problem if he does it, but the honesty of it would greatly diminish what I think people thought he was actually doing. And not only that, they made sure to photograph him standing there with a really wide-angle lens, which curves horizontal lines. Right. So in the photo, you see this curvature of Earth's surface, and he said, wow, he's in space, look at that.
You could see the curvature of the Earth.
No, he's not. At that height, you don't see the curvature of the Earth if you are 2 millimeters above this beach ball. You just don't. That stuff is flat. That stuff is flat. That stuff is flat. You've been lied to by textbooks.
Now, one thing I really want your generation to embrace is that the Earth is a closed system. We cannot leave the Earth. There's no place to go.
I mean, I could have said the world was flat.
You know what I think? I think you accidentally told the truth.
Through your career and your writing and your acting, you've inspired so many people to enter the sciences. How do you balance science with science fiction?
They're both the same. The mystery of science fiction is what I'm talking about. Science and science fiction are essentially the same.
Blinding me with science.
Blinded by science. Oh, she's blinding me with science.
John chapter 9, verse 25. Whereas once I was blind, now I can see. Now I can see. Now I can see.